There's a reason the richest people in history studied philosophy. It's the same reason emperors kept philosophers as advisors and why the most successful modern minds still read Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. Because wealth without wisdom is just a countdown to collapse. And wisdom without application is just decoration. The ancient world understood something we've forgotten. That wealth isn't just about accumulation. It's about stewardship, strategy, and the internal discipline to hold on to what you build. The chronicles of ancient wisdom aren't dusty history lessons. They're blueprints for massive wealth that still work today because human nature hasn't changed. Greed, fear, ambition, discipline. These forces were the same 2,000 years ago as they are right now. Let's start with King Solomon, considered the wisest and wealthiest king in history. The Bible says his wealth was so vast that silver was considered worthless in Jerusalem during his reign. But here's what most people miss. His wealth didn't come from luck or inheritance alone. It came from wisdom. When God offered him anything he wanted, Solomon didn't ask for riches. He asked for wisdom to lead well. And because he prioritized wisdom, the wealth followed. He understood trade routes, diplomacy, alliances, and resource management at a level that made Israel the wealthiest nation in the region. The lesson? Wealth follows wisdom, not the other way around. Most people chase money without building the capacity to manage it. That's why lottery winners go broke. That's why athletes with $100 million contracts end up bankrupt. They got the wealth without the wisdom. But Solomon built the wisdom first, and the wealth became inevitable. Now let's go to Rome. Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of the richest men in Roman history. He made his fortune in real estate, but not the way you think. When fires broke out in Rome, which happened constantly because most buildings were wood, Crassus would show up with his private firefighting team. But he wouldn't put out the fire until the owner agreed to sell the property to him at a fraction of its value. Once he bought it, he'd put out the fire, rebuild it, and rent it out or sell it at a profit. Was it ruthless? Absolutely. Was it strategic? Undeniably. Crassus understood leverage, timing, and the psychology of desperation. He saw opportunity where others saw chaos. That's ancient wisdom applied to wealth. Capitalize on what others overlook, and always position yourself to have what people need when they need it most. But here's the other side of Crassus's story. His wealth made him arrogant. He chased military glory to match his financial success, and it got him killed in one of Rome's most humiliating defeats. The wisdom? Wealth without humility is dangerous. Know your lane. Master it. Don't let ego pull you into battles you're not built for. Let's talk about the Medici family. In Renaissance Florence, they weren't just wealthy. They were the wealthiest banking family in Europe. But their wealth didn't come from hoarding. It came from investment. They funded artists like Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Botticelli. They financed exploration, architecture, and innovation. And in doing so, they didn't just get richer, they shaped culture, politics, and history. That's ancient wisdom meeting massive wealth. Invest in what lasts. Don't just stack money. Build legacy. Create systems that outlive you. In this video, we're tracing the principles the ancients used to build empires. And if you want the next breakdown on modern wealth, strategies, and execution, subscribe so you don't miss it. Here's another one, the Rothschild family. In the 1800s, they built one of the largest fortunes in history through banking. But the strategy was rooted in ancient principles. They had 5 sons, and each one was stationed in a different major European city: London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. And They created a network of information that was faster than anyone else's. They used carrier pigeons to send financial intelligence across borders before anyone else knew what was happening. When Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo, Nathan Rothschild knew before the British government did, and he used that information to make a fortune in the bond market. That's not just smart, that's ancient wisdom applied. Information is power, speed is leverage, and networks are wealth. The Rothschilds understood what Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War centuries earlier. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. They knew the markets, they knew the politics, and they positioned themselves to win no matter what happened. Now let's go even older. To ancient Egypt. The pharaohs didn't just build pyramids for ego. They built granaries. During the 7 years of plenty, they stored grain. And during the 7 years of famine, they controlled the food supply. That's the story of Joseph in the Bible, a Hebrew slave who became second in command of Egypt because he understood cycles. He knew that abundance doesn't last. He knew that preparation during plenty is what saves you during scarcity. That's ancient wisdom that still applies today. Save during the boom. Build reserves. Don't spend everything when times are good, because the lean times are coming. Warren Buffett says the same thing in modern language. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. That's just the Egyptian grain strategy in a different wrapper. The principles don't change. Here's another ancient principle that built empires. Delayed gratification. The ancient Spartans were warriors, but they were also disciplined in every area of life. They didn't indulge, they didn't waste, they trained, saved, and prepared. That discipline made them nearly unbeatable in battle. The same discipline applies to wealth. The people who get rich and stay rich are the ones who can delay gratification. They don't buy the car the moment they can afford it. They don't upgrade their lifestyle every time their income increases. They live below their means, invest the difference, and let compound interest do the heavy lifting. That's Spartan discipline applied to modern wealth. And it works. Let's talk about Genghis Khan. Most people think of him as a brutal conqueror, and he was. But he was also a brilliant economist. He established trade routes across Asia. He protected merchants. He created a system where goods could flow freely across the largest empire in history. The Silk Road flourished under his rule, and the Mongol Empire became incredibly wealthy, not just from conquest, but from commerce. The lesson? Wealth flows where there's safety, structure, and systems. You can't build lasting wealth in chaos. You need order. You need trust. You need infrastructure. Here's the final piece of ancient wisdom that connects to massive wealth. Generosity. The wealthiest ancients understood that giving created loyalty. Roman emperors funded public games, baths, and buildings. They knew that the people's loyalty was worth more than hoarding gold. The Medici funded art and culture. Rockefeller gave away a fortune to build universities and hospitals. Carnegie built libraries across America. Why? Because they understood that wealth without contribution creates resentment. But wealth that builds, that gives, that elevates others, creates legacy, and legacy outlasts money. So here's the question. What ancient principle are you ignoring? Are you chasing wealth without wisdom? Are you hoarding without investing? Are you consuming without creating? Because the ancients already figured this out. The principles are waiting. The question is, will you apply them? Drop a comment down here. What's one ancient principle you're committing to live by? Let's see who's building for the long game.